Wow, absolutely massive breaking news. Thanks to Toby for the update. The Commanders are trading for Laremy Tunsil, one of the best tackles in the National Football League, a star on the left side, a 5-time Pro Bowler, began his career in Miami, has been a mainstay with the Houston Texans, very durable guy, has played the full season 2 of the last 3 years, missed 3 games last season in 2023, but he's made 3 straight Pro Bowls, 5 of the last 6 years. He's played in 125 games. He's 30 years old. He's entering his 10th season. Laremy Tunsil, who was drafted way back in 2016, 13th overall. He was actually supposed to go way earlier than he did.
Gas mask bit.
Yeah, he was the guy that got screwed over by the gas mask video. Would have been a top 3, top 5 pick. But this is one of the best tackles in the league. I've got chills as I'm mentioning this here on the air. Adam Peters taking a gigantic swing. He's got a left tackle, means they can kick Brandon Coleman over to the right side, or they can play Brandon Coleman inside at guard. But you got your young quarterback, you're protecting his blind side, and this offensive line just got a hell of a lot better.
Holy crap. So we don't know the terms yet. Houston gets a draft pick haul of some kind. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're up against the salary cap, so Houston has to make moves like this. I did not anticipate this, quite frankly. Left tackles, who are excellent, do not become available. So this one just did. I cannot believe this. I didn't see this coming. I never saw anything, no rumor mill, no even like fake fan account that said this might be possible.
I'll say
Holy
this for
crap,
Peters
dude.
in Washington. They don't really do leaking.
Yeah.
You know, here are the terms from the Commanders to the Texans. A 2nd and 4th rounder next year to the Texans, plus a 3rd rounder this year.
So this year's 3rd, 2nd, and 4th next year. I would set a record for how fast I sign up for that. Oh, hell yeah.
The Commanders will also be getting a 4th round pick back from the Texans. Now, I wonder if that's this year or next year. I'd have to imagine it's probably next year.
So the next year would be a 4th round swap then, because Washington's sending a 4th rounder next year.
Possibly, unless it's this year's 4th round pick. He did not specify, but this is Ian Rappaport saying Washington is sending a 2 next year and a 4 and a 3, a 2 and a 4 next year, but the 3rd round pick this year to the Texans for Laremy Tunsil, the starting left tackle. We have said, Danny, they've got to find a way to upgrade this offensive line. One of the paths to doing that was to get better on the left tackle spot, to improve from Brandon Coleman, who gave up a lot of pressures and sacks as a rookie. Now, I was on record as saying I would just roll with Coleman because I didn't think there was a left tackle on the market. It was a pretty bleak market. You normally cannot trade for standout left tackles. It doesn't really happen. But Washington was able to find a dance partner. Now, by trading a 3rd round pick for him, it means that now you've got pick 29 in the 1st round, pick 29 in the 2nd round, which is 61 overall, and then pick 207, 238, and 250. So they're now down to just 5 draft picks and only 2 before the 6th round. Because that 3rd round pick that they got from Miami at 79, presumably is the pick going for Laremy Tunsil.
So, but they're solving needs with those picks. It's just, not the way we're used to doing it, right? You're used to using that pick on a young player who then you sign to that 4-year deal with a 5th round option and blah, blah, blah. This is we're using that 3rd round pick on a Pro Bowl left tackle. We're using the 5th round pick on, weapon Deebo Samuel. We used last year's 3rd and 4th and whatever the other terms were for hopefully an upgraded quarterback and Marshawn Lattimore. So they are filling out the roster. They're looking at voids and looking at under sort of valued commodities to use the currency at their disposal, whether that's salary cap money, whether it's draft picks. Because there was a time, remember, not that long ago, when people were treating draft picks like they were solid gold, like you couldn't possibly part with any draft pick just because it was such a commodity. And then the Rams are going, well, everybody's overvaluing them. We'll just say bleep those picks and go, stars and scrubs and win a Super Bowl. Now it's kind of balancing back out a little bit. They're using the means at their disposal to capitalize on their window right now. They just got a lot better, dude. Like, I did not see that coming at all. You just said it. The versatility of having Coleman, either now you upgrade at left guard massively. Maybe you kick Coleman to the right side. Maybe Wiley's still on the roster as the right guard while Sam Cosmi gets himself healthy. You've got options now because you just got your most talented, best offensive lineman, with all due respect to those other guys, now at left tackle, the most important spot. Maximizing and protecting Jaden Daniels is mission number one for me, and it looks like it's important to them too. Hell yes.
So I need to know if this 4th round pick is for this year or next year, which is not to say, by the way, that I really care necessarily in terms of making the trade worth it or not, because the trade is absolutely worth it to me, regardless, if we're being honest. But I need to know, just for my own clarification, of like how to feel about this year's draft. Because if the 4th round pick is next year, then again, they're down to a 1, a 2, and 6, and 2/7, 5 picks this year. If they have a 4th round pick, it does make you feel a little bit different, because now you could trade back from 29, get 2 or 3 picks in the 2nd or the 3rd round or whatever, and then have multiple 2s, a 3, a 4. It looks very, very different all of a sudden with a trade back. Whereas without that 4th rounder, no matter what, almost, it's going to be pretty bleak in the early going. But look, I am never going to fault a executive for going out and taking big swings. I'm never going to get upset at Adam Peters for adding super talent. This is one of the better left tackles in the league. This is one of the better players at one of the most important positions in all of football. Okay, this is a 5-time Pro Bowl, 30-year-old stud who's got years left at a high level. But also, let's stop saying it's all about draft picks. It's all about the draft. No, you're in win now mode pretty clearly.
Yeah.
You went and got Debo for a year. You have now paid a bunch of money to a defensive tackle who you think is going to be pretty good the next couple of seasons, and you're going to get a 30-year-old left tackle and moving off of the plan, which was the guy that you had just drafted in Brandon Coleman, yeah? So I say all that to say, man, A, I love this, and B, I want to know about this 4th round pick.
Looks like cap numbers 2025, $21.3 million with $10 million guaranteed. Next year, it's not guaranteed, but still a bargain, 21.3 for, imagine going in free agency and trying to sign Laremy Tunsil. So it would be north of 30, and it probably might end up being there if they end up extending him.
So there's
wanting
only
a new
2
contract.
years left at $42 million?
Only 2 years left at $42.6 million.
That's ridiculous.
That's precisely.
I don't know anything, so I shouldn't say this. I've never talked to the guy. He'd be insane if he's not looking for an extension. Now, also, why would the Texans have traded him if he doesn't want an extension? I would have to imagine he wants to get paid.
So I think so. They know they can't. I mean, they're up against it now. I think they're $4 million under the cap as it stands right now today before a flurry of activity. That's according to over the cap. So they're freeing up about $14 million of cap space in real time this year. They have to eat a little bit for this season, but going forward, they're already looking ahead to Stroud extensions, to being able to kind of improve the ball club after they went last year feeding frenzy style to try to add some pieces in their kind of win now mode, right? And they sort of, I would say, underachieved a little bit given expectations. We're still fine, won a playoff game and the like, but they're kind of, I think, clearing the deck for what might have to happen going forward. And they realize we can't do a mega extension. It's not like I've talked to a Houston Texan, but I think they realize we can't do a mega extension to keep Tunsil happy going into the last year of his deal with guaranteed money. We can't pay him 32 or whatever the hell it's going to take to keep him happy, to keep him here, and still build the rest of the roster. So they moved on, and Washington for 2 years as it stands, my bet is they'll extend him at some point. They're getting him basically for what one of these guards just got in free agency. Yes.
I mean, this is a neck out move if you're Peters.
Yeah.
Just because of the amount that they're giving up. A 2, a 3, and a 4 ain't nothing. I mean, that's a lot of draft capital. That's your Trey Hendrickson draft, trade. Like, if you would have told me an hour ago they're about to trade a 2, a 3, and a 4 for somebody, I would have said, holy shnikes, they're getting Trey Hendrickson. A 2, a 3, and a 4 is a lot to give up for a 30-year-old left tackle who's got 2 years left on his deal. My guess is you extend him, and I'm quite sure that they feel like they've got their franchise left tackle for the next several years. So to not give up a first-round pick and to do that, eye of the beholder, no problem. But there's someone else sitting somewhere that goes, man, 3 picks, a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th for a 30-year-old offensive lineman. It's one of those things where he's got to play well. If he plays like a bookend stalwart, standout left tackle, nobody will ever have an issue with what you just gave up. But if you start to show a little age, not everyone's Trent Williams playing until they're 35, 36 at the same level, then all of a sudden, if you're Adam Peters, when you take swings like this, you just open yourself up. And I love that he's not afraid to. I love it.
Albert Beer, 18 seconds ago, said the following. The Texans are trading 5-time Pro Bowl left tackle Laremy Tunsil and a 2025 4th-round pick to the Commanders for a 2025 3rd and 7th-round pick, a 2026 2nd and 4th-rounders, sources confirmed. So, to recap, that's next year's 2nd and 4th. This year, it's a 3rd and 7th. And Houston sending back Laremy Tunsil and a 2025 fourth. So Washington picks up a fourth this year, gives up a third and seventh in this year's draft, and a second and fourth in the 26th draft.
Got it. So then to clarify this year's class, so they have one of the 2 sevenths. So now they have a 1, a 2, a 4 from Houston,
yes,
1 6, and 1 7th. And they're down to 5 draft picks.
Correct.
800-636-1067. You want to react? Marty's in Alexandria. How about that for a blockbuster, Marty?
Yeah, once they called it, I went right online and I saw the actual trade. So I was just going to tell you what it was, but you guys already beat me to it. Honestly, I was a little concerned when I heard the 2, 3, and 4. But since it's a 4 swap and we have a 4 this year, to me it's the 2nd, 3rd, and the 7th. I don't care about the 7th. I do care about the 2nd and 3rd. It's a little pricey, but look, I'm unlike you guys. I'm in Adams we trust. So whatever.
Appreciate you,
Thank you, buddy.
Guys.
In Devontae Adams, the Commanders trust.
And John Quincy Adams.
Yes. Good phone call. Thank you. You can react to Laremy Tunsil to Washington at 800-636-1067. You can tweet us at Grant H. Paulson, at Funny Danny. I think 2 things can be true. This is very pricey. Giving up a 2, a 3, and a 4. You've already depleted this year's draft class to the point where you're really going to have to get creative and hit on some picks. And now you've started to do it with next year's class, which adds to the conversation about building through the draft and pushing your chips in. But you've got a finite window here with Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal. And what have we all been saying for weeks? Upgrade the offensive line. Give this kid the best chance at superstardom. You want to compete with the Eagles in your division? You want to compete with the teams that you're not quite on the level of right now? The best path to that is upgrading the trenches.
Yep.
And Adam Peters has now signed a D tackle, even though it was a little rich for me. $15 million for Kinlaw, not my favorite move of the day. But went out and got a big D tackle up the middle to replace Allen, and has now signed a starting left tackle. I wonder what they do with Brandon Coleman. Do you kick him inside to guard, where a lot of people felt he was going to play when he got drafted? I think he'd be a really, really good guard. This could be Cosme 2.0, by the way, where you draft a guy, try him at tackle, he's okay, you kick him inside and he becomes really, really good. Or might they kick him over to right tackle?
Mm-hmm.
That allows you to either cut Wiley or move Wiley inside, where he once started in Kansas City.
And then that would be for Sam Cosme, who's recovering from a very late season knee injury, right?
Well,
so
you could also start him at left guard over Allegretti.
You could do that too. The point is now
Cosme
you've got options.
will not be available at the beginning of the year because of the ACL.
Precisely. So to me, my dream, the point that I made, I want 3 new starters along the offensive line, but 2 new players. Coleman was going to start somewhere for me. I don't know if that was left tackle, right tackle, left guard, whatever. He was going to move for me if it was up to me, and I was going to hopefully upgrade, whether it was in the draft, or maybe there's a right tackle late in the first round. Maybe it's you trade back at the end of the first round, or early second round, something like that. You have to move around the board to find somebody. I did not see this coming. Obviously, I had no idea that a 5-time Pro Bowler and left tackles, a lot of guys will tend to play into their mid-30s, upper 30s really, really well. See Trent Williams and a bunch of other guys at this stage. So to me, this is a price that I would pay every time and twice on Sunday. Like, I understand it's steep with the number of draft picks going in the next year, but you look at the tackle market at the end of the first round, really hard to find one. You need to be usually 10, 11, 12 if you want one of the second or third best guys in the draft. Marquee spot, free agent, huge position premium spot. You're not finding one in free agency. You got to pull the lever somehow, and that's what it costs.
Well, you got to keep Jaden Daniels healthy, period. The whole goal of the organization right now is to keep this guy who is not particularly thick, and if he gets crunched in the pocket when he's not expecting it, could get hurt. We saw him basically play mediocre football for a month last year after he got dinged in the ribs. You have to keep him healthy. He looks like he could be one of the great players in the league if he's healthy.
That's right.
Upgrade your offensive line. And there's only so many ways to do that. And they just got one of the best left tackles in football. By the way, PFF graded out Laremy Tunsil as the 4th best Texan overall last year, behind Collins, Stroud, and Diggs, although it was a limited number of snaps. So I would say the 3rd best full-timer for the Texans. And his pass blocking grade of 89 is elite. I mean, as good as it gets around the league this past season from PFF. Speaking of which, Nick Ackridge covers the Commanders for Pro Football Focus, and he joins us now. Nick, what do you think about a 2, a 3, and a 4? It's a lot, but Laremy Tunsil's a really good left tackle.
Yeah, it's a lot, but these left tackles you don't really get an opportunity to get someone like Laremy Tunsil. I'm shocked that the Texans are willing to make that trade. But yeah, you just got yourself an elite left tackle. who's just constantly been elite throughout his entire career. I mean, there hasn't really been a season that he has performed anything less than elite. So again, confused as to why the Texans were willing to move on with that, but ecstatic that he's here in Washington.
How does he fit scheme-wise? I mean, I imagine you could put him anywhere, Nick, but just in terms of Kingsbury, fit, design, thinking run, pass game, etc. I imagine he'd be a pretty good fit, but specifically to this scheme, how does he work for you?
Yeah, I mean, plug him in instantly left tackle, and I think he doesn't skip a beat. I think, there were some times last year where left tackle was a bit of an issue with Brandon Coleman. He had a decent year, but you have someone like Laremy Tunsil that can step in right away, tons of experience in the NFL, and I think he can step in right away. He's an athletic player as well, so he can get out the screen game, but you really don't want to use him for that. He's going to be the protector of Jane Daniels, and he's going to be very, very good at it.
Laremy Tunsil for a 2, a 3, and a 4 to Washington, their new starting left tackle. It is a lot, but as Nick Ackridge of PFF is saying, you're getting a potential elite player at left tackle. How did you guys grade him out? I mentioned the pass blocking grade was amazing. How has he graded out over the years from a run standpoint?
Yeah, from a run standpoint, it's around above average for his entire career. And that's kind of perfectly fine for left tackles. You would rather have them be much better pass blockers than run blockers. But yeah, just kind of above average throughout his whole career, which again is really kind of where you want someone who's going to excel this much in pass blocking. You don't want a huge drop off in the run game, but he's been just above average, which is more than enough.
Do you think that they're making moves? I happen to, Nick, I'm kind of tipping my hand here. Do you think that they've been making moves with the Eagles in mind? In other words, like what bothered them about an excellent team that obviously won the Super Bowl? You've got to beat them first before you get out of your own division and maybe go make some noise in the postseason again. It seems to me they've got an eye just up the road at 95 with how they're building this roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it also kind of coincides with this is kind of where they were weak in general. I think the trenches were where they were kind of the weakest. But yeah, you've seen exactly what Philly's done. Philly's had an incredible offensive line for almost as long as I can remember, and trying to match that is a good strategy. Trying to match that offensive line strength, trying to match their defensive line strength is a great way to kind of attack your team, especially when you've already figured out that quarterback position. We saw what Jaden could do with, somewhat lackluster group of receivers, and I think you just really needed to solidify what you have in the trenches, and I think with this Laremy Tunsil trade, they're definitely doing that.
Nick, my last one is I know a lot of Washington fans are kind of conditioned to quote unquote build through the draft, right? Where you select a bunch of players and they grow and develop and you keep them and it's this nice young core. My point is they're using draft picks, but just in a different, maybe less traditional way to swing.
Tunsil is all 3rd and 4th and 2nd round pick.
It's not exactly the Ernie Grunfeld methodology, but it's maybe closer to that than some folks are used to. They're bringing in difference makers and using their draft picks as currency. I'm cool with it, but I wonder about sustainability. I wonder, maybe how folks are going to react. Just give me your thoughts there.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But we saw a team that was one game away from the Super Bowl. I think they realized that they can go and attack right now, and they're not too concerned about building that stability out. I think you have a window right now, and you do everything that you possibly can to succeed in that window. And I think Laremy Tunsil is the key to that. And it's not the worst thing in the world to kind of have a quiet draft day. Typically Washington is very heavily involved in the draft, especially early on. But it's for me, it's going to be kind of nice to just kind of sit back and relax and kind of not really stress too much about the draft. I think that what they're doing right now with free agency is where I would kind of lean towards.
I know Danny asked you this in passing, but just to drill you down a little bit here. So what's your best guess? Brandon Coleman starts where?
I think left guard. He played a lot of left guard there at TCU, and I thought he was really good at left guard at TCU. Again, this past year, I thought he was fine. I thought he was, for a 3rd round rookie, I thought he played pretty well. He had some moments, but I think moving into left guard is probably a better fit. And then playing next to someone like Laremy Tunsil is always a good thing to do as well.
No kidding. Why wouldn't he want an extension? 2 years and $42 million left for one of the best players in the league at that position. Don't you think he'll be asking for a new contract?
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that. And then Washington could be in a good position to give him that with all the cap space they currently have. That could be another reason why the Texans might have moved on from him. We'll probably learn more in the next coming days of why they did. I still can't really wrap my head around it. But yeah, you can definitely see an extension down the line.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, you guys have a good one.
And I'm getting some reaction on social here at Grant H. Paulson at Funny Danny. We'll hit the phones in a moment. 800-636-1067. If you're just joining us, the Commanders with one of the huge moves of the day in free agency in the NFL, trading a 2, a 3, and a 4. The 2 and the 4 next year, the 3 this year, to the Texans for one of the best left tackles in the league, Laremy Tunsil. And surprisingly to me, Danny, a lot of people are bothered by the draft picks that they're giving up, that they're down now to 2 picks in the first 3 rounds, 4 picks in the first 5 rounds. They've got a 1, a 2, a 4, 1 6th, and 1 7th. I think people like the idea of drafting a left tackle at number 7 or whatever. They're picking 29th this year, oh, by the way.
Yeah.
They have 1 pick in the top, 60 selections as it is. So this idea that you're going out and getting the types of guys that you're normally shopping for in the draft when you're picking 2nd, Jaden Daniels, 5th, 7th, 9th, they're picking 29th. So number one, their first-round pick is kind of like a second-round pick. Their second-round pick is kind of like a third-round pick. But also, after years of the draft being the Super Bowl around here, after years of the draft being our little baby, we swaddle it. We look at the draft and we pet it.
Look at my first mock in October. What quarterback's available?
The draft, it's 7 hours long. I can't wait. They're good now.
Yep.
They're good now. You want a left tackle? You're picking 29th. You got to trade for a left tackle. You can't find a premier left tackle at 29 in the first round. You want one? You trade draft picks, your precious little draft picks, for Laremy freaking Tunsil, one of the best players in the league. And by the way, Adam Peters, I don't need any more we're building through the draft. The picks mean everything to us. I also don't need him to get the bleep them pick shirts, but he's not far from the bleep them pick shirts. He's not quite Les Sneading and Sean McVaying this thing, but he's closer to grabbing that shirt than he is hoarding the picks, like he's Bill Belichick in the mid-2000s or whatever.